Hey everyone, so today I just released the clean API of my custom spawns mod, which lets you spawn different kinds of troops into the game, different kinds of parties in different kinds of schedules, depending on different probabilities, etc., etc. You can control where they spawn, when they spawn after a certain. You can make it so that they only spawn after a certain number of days. You can make them patrol around the place that they have spawned from, and we will be adding more features. I'm saying we because now that I've released the API, I will be making this mod available on GitHub so that we can work on it together and improve it together. So why use this API for your mod? Well, if your users download this API, Custom Spawns Clean API for my Nexus mods page, then they could run as many mods that implement it at the same time. So for example, currently, if a mod wants to add troops into the game, it would have to override one of the troops inside the game. And if a different mod does the same thing, or if the patch tries to change the troops or does something, God knows what, then that could actually break the mod and give the users crashes. So instead of that, it's a better idea to have your troops spawn separately. And it's an even better idea to use an API, a standard API, that spawns these for you so that you can define your troops and the stacks. And another mod could do the same thing. And it would all be handled by this one API that we will be developing together. But right now it already has the functionalities needed, which my mod uses actually. Anyway, so with the custom spawns clean API on the Nexus mods page, I've also made available the submod template, which gives a template of a custom spawns mod, a mod that implements the custom spawns API. So the module data and the submodule XML files are the generic files, but I will be going over them shortly. But the special file is the custom spawns file. So this file, the custom spawns submod file inside the custom spawns file, actually just defines the name of your mod, as you can see here. And the name signifiers and the other XML, the regular banded daily spawn XML, actually defines how often the parties spawn and what parties spawn and where they spawn and all kinds of different parameters. So here, we'll just go over the module data first because these are the easiest ones. Well, they are the standard ones that are done the same way in any other mod. So the mod troops.xml file would contain your troops. You could actually change the name of this XML file. Set it to whatever you want. You cannot change the names of the files inside custom spawns file, but you can change these to whatever you want. Anyway, you will be getting empty files at first, but you would just define your party templates and your troops in the same way that you would in any other mod. If you want to get an idea, you can actually go to the sandbox module and implement it in the same way that the vanilla implements. So you would go to module data here, and then let's say to bandits, right? So you would select any NPC character from here. Let's see. See, I haven't yet figured out how these body property keys work. It's just that, for example, this forest bandits here seems to implement some key that sets up how its face looks. And in fact, it actually implements the variance in its face. It has some minimum and maximum key. I haven't figured out how that one works. If you have figured it out, please leave it in the description. But the other bandits, for example, just implement the same face key template as this one. So that's what I have used in my mod. So for example, I would just take this until the end of the file. And then I would just copy and paste it into my file and play with it, change the ID, and there should be, the ID should start with CS and then underscore. The reason why is because when the mod is being removed, it actually looks for this initial, and it removes all the troops and the parties that start with this initial, so custom spawns underscore, whatever you want. And if you don't want it to have that many conflicts with other mods, let's say like CS Looter, you add CS Looter into the game. Well, what if another mod does the same thing? Well, that's going to be a big problem, right? So instead, you could add another initial into the ID. So CS underscore LO if your mod is called, I don't know, Looters on Drugs, whatever, and then LOD, and and then the name of the troop would come. So custom spawns underscore looters on drugs or whatever your mod is called, and underscore bandit. See, like this part doesn't matter, but the CS underscore needs to be here. If you don't set it up this way, the mod will work, but your users will run into issues if they try to remove the mod, which is like a virus. Let's not give our users viruses. Anyway, the default group defines what group the troop will be set up in. So there's cavalry, there's infantry, and then there's ranged. I think there's like skirmishers and other things as well. You can look into it into the game files. There's like I think 9 different default groups, but I just use these 3. And I think AI just uses these 3 too, and also horse archers, of course. Anyway, you would set up the name of the name that would display inside the game here. So it would be like I don't know, high looter because he's high or something. And you would set up the level here. So level 1 shows no tiers. Level 6 shows tier 1. Level 11 shows tier 2, etc., etc., etc. It starts at 1 and it increments 5 by 5. You could set up different levels, but the player will not see any difference between 16 and 18 when they look at the troop in the game. They would just see, you know, like 3 symbols that define that is rank 3. So the rank wouldn't go up if it's higher than 16 and less than 21. Anyway, the occupation, I always set it to bandit because these are bandits. In the future, I might, well, this doesn't relate to occupation, but in the future, I would be setting up different factions that are not bandit related. So we could actually mess with this later, but for now, just set it to bandit. And the culture, so if you use a culture, and cultures and factions are the same thing, it seems to me, inside the XML files. But if you set up the culture such that it's a bandit, the player will require to have the discipliner perk to upgrade the troop into the next troop. If you set it to empire, you can still, or any other culture that is not a bandit culture, you can still use it in bandit parties, but the player will not have to have that perk to upgrade it. So that's something to consider. The base key template is the one I haven't been able to figure out. I just leave this here. You can set it up to different characters if they implement keys themselves. So I think there's one for, let's say, Sturgia Peasant or Peasant Sturgia, I don't remember. But if an NPC character that has this ID implements a face key template, then your troop would also use the same face key template. Anyway, you would set up the skills that your new troop would have, and then you would set up different equipments. So this is randomized such that these equipments are placed, you know, these equipments are randomized. So there could be 5 of your high looters, and one of them would have this, and one of them would have this, and one of them would have this, and the other one could have this or this. You know, it's all randomized. You can get the item IDs through the SP items. It should be sp items.xml inside the sandbox module. If it's not here, then it would have to be in another submodule. Just mess around with the files, to be honest. Like, even I don't know where the files are. Well, where these files are. I know where the files of my mods are, but the game itself is huge, so it's so hard to find things sometimes. Maybe it's in, yeah, see, this was in Sandbox Core. So Sandbox Core implements the items. So you would literally come in here, and let's say you want to add a desert male coif, which is called a southern male coif in the game. So you might want to actually launch up your game and look at all these different armors and weapons that you want, write them down, and then translate them into their IDs when you come back. Anyway, if you want to have your troop have a male coif, which is a head armor, as you can see here, and you would just come in here and set it up such as this. You would set the head slot into this one. And you might do a similar thing. You know, these are randomized over, so you can play with the probabilities however you want. By the way, this is I am doing this to, you know, this is done in the same way that any other mod would do. This is just adding troops into the game, but they don't have any spawns yet. Anyway, you can play around with this however you want. The mod parties are a bit more straightforward. So they use party templates, and we can just find one here. Let's say you go to modules and then you go back to sandbox and you go to module data again. And there should be a party templates here that you can use as a reference. So, implement it in the same way that the game implements it so that things don't break. So that things work, actually. Party templates. There you go. So you can just take any template. These are much more straightforward, but I will have to ask you to do the same ID trick. So you would start with CS and then whatever the initials of your mods is or whatever you want to set it to, and then you would start the ID so that there's no ID conflicts. And then you would set up the different troops that you have added. So let's say we just added the CSLOD bandit, which is the high looter. We just added that guy, right? So you would just set this up like this. So normally in the game, bandits cannot have more than 3 different troops inside their parties. My mod makes it so that they can spawn it with however many troops that they want. But this means that if they change the spawning calculations in the game, then we would have to update it ourselves as well, because my mod implements it separately. It currently implements it in the same way that the game implements, so these minimum and maximum values are actually not completely random. Wait, let me just bring that bandit back. It's actually scaled such that the number of days that have passed inside the campaign and the main player's level is taken into account. So the number of CS LOD bandits that spawn in the game will be closer to 10 if the game just started and our character is just starting out, and it will be closer to 30 if the character has been playing for 500 days and he has lost his marriage over Bannerlord or something. Anyway, yeah, so you can add party templates in here like this. So this ID that you set up will be used by my mod. So you would go into the mod that you just created, into, let's say, submod template, and into custom spawns. And then you would go into regular bandit daily spawn, right? And uncomment this. This is like an example that I have used. So these in white are the comments. Anyway, so you would set up the ID here. These are actually quite self-explanatory because I made them explain themselves, but just to go over it, here you would set up the bandit clan. So this will set it up such that our crazy man party is under the mountain bandits. Again, we could add new factions to the game later on, but that's a bit more complicated, I think. At least I haven't looked into it enough. It might actually be very easy, but just to make sure that things work smoothly, for now I'm doing it this way. We can add new things together later. So anyway, the overridden spawn clan, you can actually just omit this. You're free to just not add this one, as the optional tag suggests. And this makes it so that even if this was a mountain bandit controlled bandit party, it would still spawn in the Sea Raiders, for example. It has a 50% chance of spawning in the Sea Raiders hideouts and 50% chance of spawning in the Mountain Bandits hideout. So if you played my main mod, there's actually enslavers that can spawn all over the map despite them being under Desert Bandits. And that's how this is done. Anyhow, you don't need to have that. And if you do, remove the EX because it just shows that it's an example. Anyway, the urban spawn culture, if this is entered, then, by the way, if you enter this, do not enter this and overridden spawn clan. My API, I believe, handles it if you enter both of them at once, but there's no reason to take chances. Anyway, if you enter these, and again, it is randomized over however many you set up. So if you wanted to set up just 5 different factions, then you would set up like this. But anyway, it looks at all the settlements and sees if the culture is the same as this one, whichever one it has chosen randomly, and then spawns it in a random settlement of that culture. So even if the Battanians, for example, were to take over an empire city, that's still an empire city in regards to its culture. And this would randomly spawn inside the empire city, despite it being controlled by the Battanians. So that's something to consider. You don't need to have it here either. So right now it would just spawn in mountain bandit hideouts. Anyway, spawn along with. sets it up such that a different parties spawn alongside this. So whenever this crazy man party template spawns, then this one would also spawn. And that's where the name signifiers comes in. These cannot be regular party templates that you have used inside the mod. So it cannot be CSLOD crazy man party templates. Instead, they have to be set up separately inside name signifier because they do not have their own spawning schedules. They are different. So this one would be a different party template. So, I think you could still use this same party template ID. Just mess around with it. But let's say that, yeah, actually, I'm just going to test it now. Yeah, I'm going to multitask and set it up such that this spawns along with the same. So whenever this one spawns in, this CSLOD crazy man party template spawns in, another one will spawn along with it. All right, so we can test it together. And if it doesn't work, then I'll fix it. Anyway, so you can write as many of these as you want. Start at 0 and go up in numbers. So now, whenever this party spawns, the same party will spawn along with it. So the maximum map is quite self-explanatory. It just set it up such that the same the number of parties that have spawned cannot exceed this. The sub-parties are not taken into account. And speaking of sub-parties, I'll actually delve into this more. So this just signifies a different name, right? So you could still have the same ID, same party template ID, but you can set up a different name. So instead of having high looters, you could set it up as lowly looters, despite it being the same party template. So they would still have the same party template, but they are different spawns, essentially. And you can add different extra speeds here. So we could just give them like 5 extra speed. We could make them run around the map. Why not? And wait, I'll get to the custom spawn submod later. And then you would go back to party templates, right? So, sorry, to regular banded daily spawn. So maximum map, self-explanatory. The maximum number of this spawn that can exist on this map at the same time. Anyway, the chance of spawn is run once a day. So this would have 1% chance of spawning once a day. The chance inverse constant increases the chances of it spawning, depending on how many there are on the map. So there could be 50 on the map, and we set it up such that this is 0.99. And the first time this spawns, well, actually, when this is trying to spawn, when there's none of it left on the map, then it will definitely spawn, and then it will gradually go down according to this formula. You can just look at it when you download the thing. Anyway, let's just set it back to, let's say, 0.99, why not? And then we will set it up such that this is like 2. So there will always be at least one of these parties on the map. And then the name of your party that will be displayed on the map. So again, the name signifiers will have a different name. So this will be called lowly looters, and this one could be called highly looters. Why not? And yeah, repeat spawn rolls. So the number of times that these chances will be tried once a day. So if this is set to 10, then this dice will be rolled 10 times until there's either 2 on the map or there's 10 dices have rolled and it hasn't spawned. Enough times at least. Like it hasn't spawned twice or 10 dices have been rolled. Maybe we'll just set it up at 1 for now. And then the spawn message. This is optional. And this is just on the bottom left corner of the game. This will be displayed if this spawns. So looters at spawned at. So the curly brackets, sorry, the regular brackets and spawn place signifies this, the place at which this party has spawned. So the API will display the spawning place of the party inside the messages. Yeah. So then you set up a color for the spawn message. If you want to have a spawn message, by the way, you can just delete all of this, and there will be no spawn messages. Just so that when we enter the game, I can see where it spawned in. I will set up a spawn message. So danger is red when you spawn when you set up a spawn message color. Or you can set up a hexadecimal. So you could set up an FFFF. So each of these two represent a 256 different possibilities. So this represents a 255, sorry, up to a 255 value. So, RGBA is 255, 255, 255. So FF signifies that this is a 255. You can look into hexadecimal values on your own. They're not that hard. You can just search it on the internet. There's actually converters, so you can just set up a color and then set it back to hexadecimal. End it with FF though. Add one more FF because this is the alpha value. So Bannerlord uses RGBA and not just RGB. So that's something important to consider. So we can just set it up like this. And then the extra linear speed is the extra speed that this will spawn with. So the speed modifier is 5 here. You can set up a different modifier for this party, the main party. So let's say 4, right? By the way, if you don't have spawn along with, you can just forget about name signifiers. This just sets up minor parties. Like in my mod, there's peasant revolters, and then there's minor stray peasant revolters that spawn along with it. Makes it a bit more realistic, I think. And patrol around spawn was actually just added in this version. So wherever these looters spawn, they will start patrolling around it, no matter what, except if they're being chased or they're attacking someone. But they will always return to that particular settlement, and they will patrol around it. So they will actually make a perimeter around the spawn, so they will be, touching other settlements, other castles around the spawn, but they will be just centering the settlement from which they have spawned. So regular patrol behavior, but they will not be moving around the map. At least not more than any other patroller in the game. And minimum number of days until spawn. This was also just added, and this sets it up such that, for example, all looters here only spawn after, let's say, 3 days or 500 days. So if you want to have like some kind of boss or some super strong stack spawn in, but you don't want it to happen at the start of the game to not overwhelm your player. Or you could even set it up such that, even stronger spawns spawn in and the world gets more hellish. Let's say after 100 days, you could set up a doomsday clock, for God's sake. I don't know. Different ideas. But yeah, we will not set it up for this time because, I don't want to mess with it right now. I just want to have the looters spawn and show it to you. Anyway, this is how you set this one up. So the ID, the party template, sorry, the clan that controls it, these two are needed. The maximum number of times it can be on the map, the maximum number of instances that can coexist on the map, sorry, the chances that it will spawn with, and the inverse constant that you can just set to 0, and the name, and the repeat spawn rolls. Anything else is optional. And if you remove some of these, they will be set up to their default values. But yeah, why should you take chances? There's no reason to take chances. Yeah, like they will be set up to, like this will be set up to 1, and the name will just be left blank if you just delete it. But if you return back to this XML file, then you want to be able to at least have this here, because this is just the rudimentary values. So you should have this here. So if you forget them, the API will handle it. But why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. So yeah, just don't delete them. Even if I wrote a way to handle it, just don't give yourself headaches. Anyway, name signifiers we went over, regular bandit daily spawn we went over, and then the custom spawn submod, which actually depends on the submodule data. All right. So let's change these names. Let's name this looter parties because we are making a high looters mod, and then looter troops. Right. So I actually set up the submodule.xml file to make your life a bit easier. So your mod name, so hi looters, and the ID would be, let's say, hi looters, right? And the version could be 1. So if you go to the Bannerlord modding documentation, you can actually see a similar file there. This is just a regular submodule.xml file, and this is the the name of the file that sets up the party templates. So what did we name it again? Oh shit! Okay, give me a second. Oh. Hey everyone, I forgot to rename the I forgot to rename the parties before. Sorry, I forgot to save the parties before I renamed them. So I recovered those anyway. These and looter troops. Yeah. So looter troops. Okay, set up. So looter parties, looter troops, and you would just set it the same way here. So looter parties and looter troops. There you go. So now your mod works. Well, actually, we just have one more thing that we need to do. You get the ID from here. You go into custom spawns. You go into custom spawn submod, and you input the ID here as well. Now, the reason why you do this is because my mod, my API has to check whether your mod is enabled. So, so that it doesn't scan the files here if your user has disabled your mod for some reason. What a sad thing to happen to your mod. But if they do it, we shouldn't try to, still make your troops spawn into the game. So, you need to put your ID in here so that my mod can read it. Yeah, so now this should be set up. Rename your file to, let's say, what was it, hi looters? And we can, give me a second. Yeah, I just had to close Sublime Text. Nothing bad happened. Okay, hi looters. There you go. So now you launch Bannerlord and it should work magically. If it doesn't, I made a mistake in the tutorial and I will fix it in front of your eyes. Bannerlord fixes, nice. So so you would open up custom spawns clean API, so they would have to enable this one. And you can also enable developer console. Wait, actually, here's a neat trick for you. Go to your documents. I'm just gonna enable cheats so that we can actually teleport to the place that we are spawning our thing in. So Mount and Blade Bannerlord. Documents, Mount and Blade Bannerlord. Bannerlord, there you go. And then you would go to configs and engine config, and this notepad should come up. And you would go to cheat mode and set it to 1. Sorry if you know most of these things that I'm teaching you, by the way. I mean, most of this video was not even covering my API, but this is to make it more accessible to everyone. So yeah, so that everyone knows what you're doing. So yeah, magically Hi Luther just popped up, and let's launch our game. And let's hope that nothing crashes. Okay. The files have been read, it seems. If the files cannot be read, it will crash on the screen. And there you go. Custom spawns is now enabled, and Hi Looters is now integrated into the custom spawns API successfully. And we can start a new campaign. Actually, I'll just load up and save the plus save. Actually, I would before that. Here. Plus save is from when my castle was being besieged. Anyway, I don't have any mods enabled for these ones, so we should just be able to add our mods here. The nice thing about the API also is that it's save file compatible. Give me a second. Hey everyone, I am now bringing you a tutorial on how not to be an idiot. You see, if you pass in a file directory into a constructor, then make sure to set the file directory to the fucking property inside the class. Anyway, I'll meet you back after the hotfix. Hey everyone, it's me after the hotfix, and we have successfully spawned in. I didn't change anything that I've shown you in the tutorial, other than the code of my API, which I probably did show you in the video. Anyway, yeah. So here we spawned in. The spawns happen at night, right? So, I don't know why that happened. Oh, there you go. Fiery looters. They spawned at. Oh fuck, I couldn't read it. Okay. Take 2. Hey everyone. If Tailwords can release a buggy game, I can release a buggy video. Okay. So anyway, it's okay. In settlement hideout. Oh yes, because we did not set it up such that they spawned in a settlement. We get the coordinates here though, so let's have some fun. And look at the coordinates. So if you open up your console through the console mod, you can actually get your main party position. They were at 626, 300. So yeah, I will start searching for them and come back. Hey everyone, so I had to reload my save and have them spawn once again because I couldn't find the coordinates. I actually forgot the coordinates that the log said. Anyway, yeah, so they actually spawned at 626, 300 again, which was quite lucky, but they are, oh shit, okay. They are engaging me. Anyway, high looter and low looters, we set them up such that they spawn together. They spawn together. They are super fast, as you can see. They run through the forest at 6.2, it's kind of crazy. Anyway, some considerations. You can go to the codex and see your troops. So, sorry. So you go to troops, and they will be under bandits, right? So highly and lowly looters. So that's one consideration. You can check your high looters, right? High looter. Yeah, there you go. So this is the troop that we added into the game. I did not check their stats or what they wore, but by chance we actually got something quite nice. And we forgot to change the upgrade trees though. And I'll show you how to do that now. But as you can see, the API works. It's just that my brain doesn't work, but the API works. Anyway, I'll stop the game. Wait, I ran the game separately. Right. So another consideration, you go to your module and then you go to module data and then you go to troops. You probably already might know this, but you just set the upgrade targets here. You set it by IDs. What's interesting is that you could actually have different mods refer to each other, right? So you could have, I don't know, like CS Madman, like I have my Madman, right? And if you have your people download my regular mod, which already does, and then have the API install as well. Well, no, hold on. You would have them download this, download the custom spawns, which already implements my API, and then have them download this alongside it, and then you could interact with my troops, or you could just have them just install the API rather than my regular version, which is a stripped version. The API is a stripped version of my regular version, stripped of the troops that it spawns. The code is still the same. Anyway, God, when I make long videos, I lose my mind. There's a reason why I became a modder and not a YouTuber. Anyway, yeah, so that's all there is, I think. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be posting the GitHub so we can develop this together, but clearly it works, especially when you write this one line of code. Yeah, I'll be also uploading the bug fix, the hot fix, if you will, and along with this. So, yeah, have a good day.